All right, welcome to today's interview on Brighteon.com. I'm Mike Adams, the founder of Brighteon, and as you know, we try to reach out to every candidate who's vying for the office of the presidency of the United States. And, you know, we judge people based on their ideas, their merit, their philosophy, nothing else. And so we put out a call, I don't know, a couple weeks ago to say, hey, can we get Vivek Ramaswamy on as well? Well, his deputy comms director, spokesperson, is joining us today, and his name is Stefan Mychajliw. It's a little tricky pronunciation, but I got it. Mychajliw joins us. Mr. Mychajliw, thank you for joining us today to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy and his run for the presidency of the United States of America. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. We both have eye charts of names, and he's getting a lot more time across America with Vivek Ramaswamy, so we appreciate the opportunity. Hey, before we begin, I just want to say thank you, Mike. I know you've been a huge crusader when it comes to telling truth about COVID, you know, through your network and your podcast. So everything is greatly appreciated with everything you've done over the past few years.
We do work to tell the truth. We believe in America, the original dream of it. We believe in a meritocracy, and we want real leadership in place, people who have courage. And frankly, I don't know a lot about Vivek. You're going to help us learn more. But from what I do know about him, he has demonstrated incredible courage right now in talking about the issues that matter. You want to give us a quick background of what he's all about?
Yeah, he's a great guy. I've gotten to know him over the past few months on the campaign trail. He's living the arc of the American dream. Born in Cincinnati, now lives in Columbus, Ohio. Went to Harvard as a biology major and then Yale Law School for his law degree, and developed basically treatments that treat very serious diseases. You know, a treatment for 3-year-old children that previously had passed away and died, and now they live because of a lot of the treatments that Vivek Ramaswamy developed. He's written 3 books. The most well-known is Woke Inc., and according to Fortune and many others, they estimate his personal worth to be, you know, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So he decided to run for president of the United States, not for the paycheck. That's certainly not the case at all. But he's lived the arc of the American dream and wants to give back. He wants to lead a national revival because of the fact that Vivek very strongly believes, because of our woke culture, that now people are basically looking to the climate cult, the woke cult, the trans cult, you know, to fill that void in their hearts rather than looking at traditional things that filled our heart and soul, even going back to President Reagan: faith, family, religion, hard work, and the beauty of America. So he decided to throw his hat in the ring and to lead a national revival, again, not for the job or the paycheck at all, but to basically turn America into, you know, that beautiful, you know, beacon and shining city on a hill, the same way we saw under President Reagan. So he's in the game. He's crisscrossing the country, spending a lot of times in places like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. And hopefully this goes from the campaign trail right to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the White House.
That's extraordinary. And I mean, it's inspiring, actually. This helps to give me hope in America again, because one of the problems we all face is apathy. Too many people who are successful are happy to just sit back and only worry about themselves. Say, well, you know, society's going to do whatever it's going to do. But for someone like Vivek, who is very successful financially and career-wise and so on, you know, he's putting a lot on the line now. He's going to face what Trump faced. If Vivek were to become president, you know, the attacks would be nonstop on him as well. And even now, I'm sure the attacks are full force. But why did he decide to put it all on the line like this, knowing how vicious the opposition would be against him?
You know, when Donald Trump went down that escalator so famously in 2015, he was a business person and a political outsider running for the White House. And Vivek Ramaswamy is doing the same now in 2024. You can only be an outsider once. And right now he is the business owner and political outsider that America needs to basically destroy the deep state and build it up from scratch. You know, he's an outsider. So there's zero connections from Vivek Ramaswamy to the deep state when it comes to the federal bureaucracy. He says all the time that right now the United States of America should not have 4 branches of government. He wants to return democracy to the people and have 3. That's why he talks about in this platform about basically eliminating the Department of Education, shutting down the FBI, shutting down a lot of those 3-letter agencies that don't report to the American people, and to shut down the establishment class and return the power to the people. So when it comes to running for president of the United States, Vivek Ramaswamy, it's very simple. He wants to lead a national revival. He's in it for the right reasons. And Mike, I'm a former elected official, and now I work for campaigns helping Vivek Ramaswamy run for president of the United States. I've never met anyone like him before. He doesn't focus on polling. He doesn't focus on consultants. He has the courage of his convictions and his principles, and he makes every single decision on the campaign trail on what is best for the United States of America. So it can jokingly say sometimes frustrating as the deputy communications director when it comes to trying to, talk to the boss about, hey, we did polling on this issue maybe, or talking about consultant and focus groups on this one. He says, no, I want to make decisions on what's best for the American people. And very quickly, Mike, I'll share a story about Moms for Liberty, where Vivek was on a podcast with the Moms for Liberty, and they just slid a piece of paper across the platform and said, this is our pledge to moms and dads and parents. Will you sign it? And of course, every consultant wants to reach across the table and say, wait a minute, let's read that first. Let's poll it. Let's focus group it. Now, Vivek has a law degree from Yale. So he did read it, said, OK, fine. I'm putting my name on the dotted line, and he signed it.
The American people are so hungry to hear the truth. They're tired of hearing, even as you referred to, the woke cult or the trans cult just domineering over society and demanding the silencing of everyone who wants to speak out, for example, to help protect children from being chemically castrated at a young age, or even to help victims who were formerly transgenders, but then they detransitioned and now they're speaking out. Well, the left wants to silence those victims as they come to their senses and say, whoa, that was crazy. I was brainwashed as a 13-year-old and I was mutilated by the hospitals. And now I realize what a horrible mistake that was. But Vivek is not afraid to speak out against the chemical or physical surgical mutilation of children, is he?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the woke left melted down when Vivek was on Meet the Press. And he said that this issue is basically a mental illness, that why on earth would states ban anyone under the age of 18 getting a tattoo and permanently marking their body with a tattoo? You can't do that, but they're going to allow children for gender mutilation. And that he had said point blank, it was a mental illness. And the woke left melted down. They couldn't believe it. But he didn't care. Oh, it was unbelievable, the reaction that he gets. Look, even going to CNN, Don Lemon led to his demise. Vivek was on with Don Lemon and basically saying, when it comes to the Second Amendment and African Americans post-Civil War, that a lot of the reasons why then Democrats wanted to put in extremely strict gun laws when it comes to African Americans because they didn't want them to be armed. So Vivek said basically what he felt in front of Don Lemon. He disagreed. Don Lemon went crazy, and then he got fired. So Vivek is what you see is what you get. It's so incredibly refreshing. And that's a big part. You mentioned, Mike, before, the truth. He's not afraid to say the truth. And that's a huge part of his campaign platform. It's basically that simple word, truth.
Trump is very easy for the left to attack because Trump is an older white man. And Trump, of course, has all the years of the baggage that's been placed on him by the media. And sadly, because we don't really live in a meritocracy as Dr. Martin Luther King had called for, we live in a society where people judge others by their ethnicity or their skin color, which I think is very, very sad. But in terms of Vivek's ethnicity, doesn't that, in essence, make him harder for the left to attack because he is a man that they would consider to be a person of color, even though you and we don't judge people by the color of their skin, but the left does. So isn't that a factor in this presidential race?
Vivek Ramaswamy was the very first presidential candidate, even when the first indictment of Donald Trump came down and says, you know what? We should never, ever weaponize the Department of Justice. We should not weaponize the deep state to basically eliminate political opponents. And Vivek says all the time, I'm the one who would benefit from Donald Trump being out of this race. But he stood on principle and said we should absolutely positively not go through with a political persecution of Donald Trump. And Vivek said that he would pardon President Trump of all potential federal charges. Did the same in the state of Florida. It was not a popular position to take, but he did it because he did it based on principle. And also on the issue of wokeness. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy literally wrote the book on woke.
Right.
And he's been taking on the left for years. And it's a big part of his presidential platform. We've just had a huge ruling from the Supreme Court that's basically shooting
amazing.
Down affirmative action. It was a huge ruling. But Vivek made a really interesting point, Mike. He had said just within minutes, Watch Harvard and all these other colleges try to find some semblance of a loophole to get around the Supreme Court ruling. That's exactly what's happening.
Of course.
Harvard is now saying, well, wait a minute, we'll let people and students talk about race in their essays so that we still follow the law and still follow the Supreme Court's ruling. But Vivek is taking on all those issues, and he's taking it on with the truth and bluntness and ways that's really driving the establishment and the left crazy.
Is Vivek's ethnicity, is it Indian? Am I correct to assume that?
Yeah, he's Hindu. He's basically the first millennial Republican running for president, the youngest candidate in that respect. Faith is very important to him. He talks about St. Xavier, St. X, the Catholic school we went to high school in Cincinnati, about that playing a huge and important role in the formation of his principles and his guiding beliefs. The issue of faith is really important to Vivek Ramaswamy, especially when talking about, the woke left and the cultist left. Now, one of the reasons why he's running for president, Mike, is the fact that there's a hole in the heart, his words, in a lot of people across America. And rather than filling with faith, God, religion, family, that a lot of the insane left, they're filling that hole with trans cult, the COVID cult, the climate cult. And so that's why he's very open about faith and the importance that we do have a very strong balance and a return to faith in God to fill that hole.
The left is filled with intolerance and hatred, and they've begun to attack now Muslim families. Because Muslim families don't want their children to be mutilated either, it turns out, for, who would have thought? But you talk about people of Hindu faith, people of Indian ethnicity coming to America. Many Hindu families, of course, are pro-family and very, very strong families, in fact, much stronger than many other countries of origin. And it's only a matter of time before the left adds to their discrimination lists people of Indian descent or of Hindu religion, not just Muslims, not just Christians, not just Chinese, because of course the left now, openly discriminates against Asians in academia. So it's like every group is going to be on the hit list of the left if we don't stop this wokeness, right?
And that's why Vivek Ramaswamy always says, when it comes to the issue of race, reverse racism is still racism.
Right.
On the issue of life, Vivek always says, unborn life is still life. And, he has an established track record of not only being a business owner and a political outsider, but someone who's taken on, the woke left over the past few years, again, especially with his book, Woke Inc. And the left and the media, they melt down every time Vivek opens his mouth about these issues.
That's
Again, the left went crazy when he said that the issue of, mutilation and transgenders and folks trying to mutilate children, that it's a mental illness, and we need to treat that mental illness rather than, basically coddle a lot of these individuals in cave.
That's right.
He called it a mental illness.
We're not saying that, they should be silenced and ostracized from society, but rather they need help. If a biological man believes he's a woman and he's wondering why an OBGYN won't examine his imaginary cervix, then clearly he needs some help. We're not trying to mock him, we're trying to help him, but we certainly don't want to share that delusion and coddle that delusion and expand it to the medical schools, where doctors are being trained now to participate in the imaginary biology of transgenders.
I'm a father. Vivek is a father of two young boys. It's a really interesting point you make, Mike, because I think of the work that Vivek put in from the medical community, where he developed treatments to literally save lives and improve lives. Again, there was a disease where previously 2- and 3-year-old children would die, and Vivek developed treatments to help save their lives, develop cancer drugs. From a physical perspective, he developed those treatments to save lives. So when you talk about the trans issue and mental health and mental illness, you would treat that rather than cave in to the woke cultist left and say, okay, we're just going to go with the whim of those folks that want to mutilate, when it comes to trans issues, their children and young children. And the light bulb went off for me when Vivek made the point on national television that most states, and I believe every single state, these states have laws on the books that stop anyone under the age of 18 from getting a tattoo. Why? Because that permanently damages their body for good. So if states, as Vivek points out, have laws on the books that limit getting a tattoo, why on earth would you have any kind of laws on the books that let children be mutilated, in some cases, do so in cases of not notifying parents about that issue?
Yes.
So Vivek Ramaswamy is very clear that you need to treat the mental illness and the mental health of someone, and that is truly caring for someone.
That's right.
Rather than let them mutilate not only themselves or small children.
There's so many issues we could go into on that, including big tech censoring people who oppose any vaccine by claiming that if you oppose a vaccine, that's promoting self-harm. And yet those same platforms allow people to promote self-harm of children under transgenderism. But we'll come back to that. By the way, you are an excellent communications director. You are... You
I appreciate that.
No, you're very well spoken, tremendous clarity on this. You said you have experience in media as well, but I just want to compliment you. Vivek has chosen well to have you here, and I'm really thrilled to be able to interview you here. Can I ask you to let's do a little rapid fire on some issues?
Anything you want.
Okay, Second Amendment. What's his position there?
Yeah, Vivek got a standing ovation at the NRA conference, where he was very passionate about being a huge protector of the Second Amendment and anything related to the Constitution. And that really goes back to his experience with his law degree from Yale and respecting and protecting our Constitution. You know, he took a lot of heat from the left-wing media when he talked about Taiwan and saying, okay, I think the NRA should open a branch in Taiwan.
You want China not to invade Taiwan? Here's something we can do. The NRA can open its branch next time in Taiwan. And you want to stop Xi Jinping from invading Taiwan? Put a gun in every Taiwanese household. Have them defend themselves. Let's see what Xi Jinping does then. That is what it means to be an actual American. Train them how to use guns, just like we did to black people in this country after the Civil War. Taiwan, we're coming for you. We're with you, Taiwan. Put a gun in every household. China ain't gonna do a peep. Xi Jinping got nothing on us.
And that will keep the Chinese back. So
I agree.
Is a huge supporter of the Second Amendment. Oh, you should have seen it. It was great. The NRA convention, standing ovation. But of course, the woke left went crazy.
Of course. Okay, climate change.
Vivek Ramaswamy calls it the climate cult. Vivek Ramaswamy makes the point all the time of their hypocrisy that nuclear is probably one of the safest and best forms of energy in the world. And the so-called climate cult should support nuclear energy if they truly cared about our climate, but they don't. And so he makes the point all the time that they're just a bunch of hypocrites because they oppose nuclear energy when, in fact, it is one of the cleanest and best forms of energy in the world.
But I completely agree on that point. And I'm sure Vivek and you know that nuclear power plants can be built in a way that is not dangerous in case coolant circulation halts, that they would self-shut down. They're self-regulating nuclear power plants. Those could be constructed. The design already exists, and they would be very, very safe to operate. And I completely agree with you. Okay. What about the issue of vaccines? I know it's complicated because there's this COVID injection, the mRNA, which is very much different from sort of all the other vaccines that came before. But what's his take on vaccine freedom, experimental use authorization, and all of those issues?
I've seen interviews with Vivek Ramaswamy where he has said point blank, he absolutely, positively opposes any government mandate for a jab. And I know, Mike, again, you've been one of the leading crusaders across America when it comes to the issue of big pharma and jabs and COVID. And Vivek Ramaswamy has taken a very active approach as well. Last year, he was talking about the fact that COVID began in a Wuhan lab and that he would do everything in his power to hold China accountable, to the point where he now wants to declare independence from China, America's biggest enemy. When it comes to the jab, Vivek Ramaswamy has said point blank, he absolutely, positively opposes any semblance of government forcing kids or any adult to take a jab.
Here's a question that you probably won't get from any other host, but being that my background is in food and nutrition and food science, let me ask you this. Does Vivek understand that there are medicinal molecules to be found in foods? In fact, many ethnic foods that are consumed all around the world, including in India, such as turmeric, for example, that contains curcuminoids that have strong medicinal value. There's so many of these, broccoli sprouts with sulforaphane, that foods can be medicine. What's his position on that?
That is a great question. I'm at Columbus headquarters, Columbus, Ohio, on a regular basis. I will say that his diet is incredibly important. He's in phenomenal shape. He was a top-ranked tennis player at one time, and he's a vegetarian. I've shared meals with him. I've been around him and his family for quite some time, and there isn't anyone that I know, personally or professionally, that's in better shape or eats well or takes his diet and food so seriously as Vivek Ramaswamy. Again, to the point where he is a vegetarian for not only faith-based purposes, but also, too, to live clean and live incredibly well. I wish that rubbed off on me, spending more time with him. Or maybe if you and I talk more, Mike, certainly I should be doing more of that. But, as far as Vivek is concerned, he has an incredibly clean diet. He's in phenomenal shape. And yeah, the diet and food is incredibly important to him from a faith perspective, and also, too, from his body as well.
One of the interesting things that happened during COVID, when Trump was in the White House and he had Dr. Atlas there for a little while, I believe, and Dr. Atlas began to talk about things like the importance of quercetin, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc ionophores, for example, that are enhanced by quercetin to allow the absorption of zinc into cells, where zinc has an antiretroviral function to actually halt viral replication. It's all based on real science. It's not woo-woo. It's not made up imaginary stuff. If Vivek were to become president, would he be open to science-backed people in his administration, perhaps even a Surgeon General who could, break the mold and actually start recommending that people use some nutrition because it's safe and it costs almost nothing?
Well, I think that's what makes his background so perfect. Not only as a business owner, but as a political outsider, but he has a degree in biology from Harvard. He's developed treatments for diseases that save and improve lives. And he's very open when it comes to thinkers around him, whether it's someone as a Surgeon General, people for his cabinet, or the folks like me around him at campaign headquarters. So I would say that he would be absolutely open to anyone who focuses on the truth and facts. And the truth is so important to Vivek Ramaswamy that it's a big part of his platform. It's the branding of the campaign, the truth. So whether it's choosing someone to be a part of his cabinet that focuses on the facts and the truth when it comes to the sciences, I can tell you this, he will never rely on a deep state bureaucrat to make those choices. Vivek Ramaswamy will focus on the fact, the truth, and hiring the best person for the job, not based on skin color, not based on quotas, but the best person for the job. And trust me, a huge part of his platform, Mike, is to destroy and dismantle the deep state, whether it's the three-letter agencies or things. It absolutely is, and build them up from scratch. So to answer your question, with his biology degree, trust me, he's a smart guy, and he's going to hire the best and the brightest, not bureaucrats.
One of the things that I really like about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the fact that he is very well informed on pollutants, heavy metals in the environment and in foods and pesticides, herbicides. Did you know atrazine is the second most common herbicide, and it's a gender bender chemical? It's number 2 right behind glyphosate, which is a cancer-causing chemical. Robert F. Kennedy knows these things. He and I can talk high level because we both have a background in this research. And I think that's also important. We have a collapse of honeybee colonies taking place right now. Pollinators are being lost, which will affect even the economics of agriculturally heavy states like California, which produces almonds, for example, that rely on pollination. All these issues are intertwined. You can't poison the world and expect to have an economy, because you'll die from healthcare costs, treating everybody for cancer because they're all, being destroyed by the toxic food supply, for example. It's all interrelated. What are your thoughts?
And I do want to mention RFK, and I'm glad you did, talk politics for a second and talk the presidential campaign, mentioning RFK. The way the Democratic Party is treating him and not letting him debate, whereas Vivek Ramaswamy says, look, I'll debate anyone, anytime, anywhere. And he said that, President Biden is a hollowed out husk that's being propped up by the deep state, that he's a puppet. And they want him as president as long as possible to keep the deep state going. So from that perspective, the Democratic Party is being very shameful when it comes to shutting him out of debates.
Absolutely.
And Vivek Ramaswamy wants to debate anyone at any time, anywhere on the Republican side of the aisle. But we need to hear those voices, whether it's from RFK on the issue of honeybees, food, things of that nature. Vivek Ramaswamy always says, the way to either shoot down a bad idea is to come up with a better one.
Yes.
We need more speech in America, regardless of your political party or your political persuasion. So he hardly supports more speech to shut down bad ideas or to bring good ideas like the ones you mentioned to the forefront.
Wait, let's talk about more speech and more debates. So tell me, what is going to be necessary to get Vivek into the debates on the Republican side?
It's a great question. Thankfully, from the very beginning of the campaign, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's put in $10 million of his own money, he's putting his money where his mouth is, had been asking people to support him with $1 donations at Vivek2024.com. The reason is because the Republican Party put in very strict parameters of who's going to be at the debate stage. You need to have 40,000 unique donors from certain portions of all across the country in order to be on the debate stage and to have a certain percentage of the vote. The good news is Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be on the debate stage.
Yay. I love that.
Ago, he is. Yeah, so
he's already achieved the 40,000, or are you saying it's projected to achieve that?
No. He is way past that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I believe it was over a month ago. He hit 40,000 donors for $1. He's got skin in the game, Mike.
Yeah.
He put in $10 million of his own money. So that's the reason why he was asking for $1. A lot of people were contacting the campaign. And it's like, wait a minute, I've heard you're worth a few $100 million. What are you asking me for $1 for? But it was all to get on the debate stage, and we don't make the rules, the GOP does, but he will be on the debate stage in Milwaukee.
I'm really pleased to hear that. And I would advise our audience, if you'd like to support a diversity of voices and views on the Republican side, definitely go to, Vivek2024.com, and that's spelled Vivek. I apologize, I was pronouncing his first name incorrectly all this time. But Vivek is how it seems phonetically, just in case you're listening. Vivek 2024.com. You can go there and you can make a $1 donation or more. And you can join with the email list there. You can join the email, enter your zip code, enter your mobile number. And look, as much as I love many things about what Robert F. Kennedy is doing, I love many things about Trump's platform. But like you, Stefan, I absolutely agree that we need more voices on the debate stage. We need to hear from more people, more ideas. And the fact that he's going to be there in Milwaukee, as you said, at the end of August, is going to introduce millions of people to Vivek's ideas and his courage, his voice, his truth. And that could be a game changer for the future of this country.
It certainly can. I cannot wait for the debates because Vivek Ramaswamy, he really is. He's special. He's unique. He's different for the fact that he just speaks the truth. He's not relying on polls or consultants. He has the courage of his convictions. And what you see is what you get. And that's what you're going to see on the debate stage. And he certainly hopes that President Trump joins the debate stage the same way that he did running for president in 2016. But Vivek will be there. And I think it's going to be wonderful to see, for the American people with Vivek Ramaswamy, what you see is what you get. Yeah. Again, there's no focus groups, no polling. He has the courage of his convictions, and his core beliefs are going to be right there on that stage. And he says things that he believes, whether it helps him or hurts him politically. That is not his care or concern at all. It's always, okay, I have my beliefs, and what's best for the American people. That's it. And that's going to shine in that debate stage.
That's exactly what we need right now. So let's continue on the issues. Talk about money printing, the Federal Reserve, and government debt.
Oh, that's a huge issue. That's a huge issue. And that's one when it comes to Vivek Ramaswamy wanting to basically gut the Fed, reduce it by 90%, and get back to its core mission of just stabilizing the dollar. That's it. Get out of politics, get out of policy. They have one job under Vivek Ramaswamy's president. The Fed will just be there to stabilize the dollar. He's also talking about Bitcoin, about using that as a barometer.
That was my next question. Crypto. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, he actually takes, he's one of the first candidates, as you mentioned, RFK too. Vivek Ramaswamy accepts crypto. He wants to use that as a benchmark to stabilize the dollar, but he's very passionate about reforming the Fed. And that goes back to his big picture issue of destroying the deep state and returning the power to the people. That you don't need this massive bureaucracy at the Fed where people are there for 30 years. They're government employees. And that's another issue, too, we're mentioning the Fed. But a big part of Vivek's policy is having an 8-year term limit for bureaucrats.
Oh,
that
yes.
The President of the United States can serve 8 terms or 8 years, that the president can serve 8 years. so too can those bureaucrats.
And the bureaucratic class, the lifetime membership to what has become the deep state that frankly oppose a lot of the things that Trump was trying to accomplish. Well, let me put this invitation out there, Stefan, that I have a new show that just launched called Decentralized TV. And that's the website, decentralized.tv. And we talk about decentralization, living a life without the overbearing centralized authority. And cryptocurrency is a big part of that show. I'd like to invite Vivek to come on to that show. We film it on Fridays. If you can pick any Friday, an hour, anytime in the next few months, he would be welcome to join the show, talk about decentralization, talk about crypto, talk about his plans for the White House. We'd love to have him on.
Yeah, it's an issue that's very near and dear to him. Vivek Ramaswamy spoke at the Bitcoin crypto conference in Florida, I believe it was last month, to talk about the fact that he was going to accept Bitcoin and crypto for campaign contributions, and the fact that he would use it as, one barometer to stabilize the dollar. He's very passionate about that, but especially reforming the Fed. He absolutely positively, as president, Vivek Ramaswamy will reform the Fed, gut it by 90%, and get back to its core mission, which is just to stabilize the U.S. dollar. Nothing more, nothing less, no politics involved.
Well, and stabilizing the U.S. dollar would mean stop printing it, by the way. But that would destroy the power of what the reason the Federal Reserve exists is the power to print money so that government can wield that power essentially as a weapon over the world, not just the United States people. The dollar has lost 97% of its value since the Fed was created. 97%.
Well, but that's what happens when politicians are allowed to print money.
That's right.
It's that simple, and Vivek has said all the time that that's the problem with America. It's a problem, reason why we have out of control inflation under the Biden administration. The politicians cannot stop printing money and to live within its means. But what's interesting though, Mike? Vivek Ramaswamy talks about the fact that you cannot cut your way to prosperity. That Republicans, whenever there's an issue like raising the debt ceiling, and you mentioned printing money, the issue of inflation and over government spending, Vivek Ramaswamy says Republicans always say we should just cut our way to prosperity. And the Democrats say, well, wait a minute, let's just spend more and raise taxes. Where a big part of Vivek's campaign platform, and no one's talking about it, is just increasing GDP growth, getting people back to work, drilling, fracking, getting the economy moving again, and not just printing money in the basement of the Capitol in order to solve government's problems, because we have record deficits under President Biden. And that's why Vivek's really passionate about GDP growth. No one's talking about it. Republicans want to cut. Democrats want to tax and spend. Vivek is talking about strengthening GDP growth.
The Federal Reserve wants to launch probably CBDCs here in America, central bank digital currencies, which is a treasury-controlled or government-controlled digital currency. Whereas,
disaster.
Exactly. But the crypto industry wants individuals to be able to hold our wallets, hold our keys, hold our coins, and decide what we wish to do with that. That is a very clear dividing line between the authoritarians versus the pro-liberty freedom lovers. And I know that RFK Jr., for example, he has publicly stated that he would support specifically people holding their private keys to their own private wallets for Bitcoin. And so please pose that question to Vivek. I know the world of crypto would love to hear his take on that issue. It's a very important issue.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the digital currency and having this global elitist control individuals. Vivek Ramaswamy had said you got to be very careful, especially when we tying it into the issues of ESG, where what's to say that if some European country or some European conglomerate or a global conglomerate can basically freeze your money, your hard-earned money, your earnings for whatever societal injustice they make up or decide.
I know.
So it's a really dangerous, slippery slope. And Vivek very early on fundamentally opposed to giving any kind of global entity that kind of power, especially over the American people.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. So we have a couple of minutes left here. I'd like to give you, Stefan, just an opportunity. Give us a kind of a closing argument, if you would, of why our audience should support Vivek or should donate to his website. Again, it's Vivek2024.com, just in case I just want to make sure people have a way to get there. and there's a lot there on the website. But go ahead and give us, if you would, kind of a closing argument. What's the summary of everything we've covered here?
Well, now more than ever, we need a business owner and a political outsider as our next president of the United States. You know, be an outsider once, and right now, that is Vivek Ramaswamy. He believes that we can have a huge landslide, the same way that Ronald Reagan did in 1980, if he is able to lead a national revival and fill that hole and that void of asking young people that question. And it's sad, Mike, that a lot of people are asked the question, what does it mean to be an American? And they can't answer it. And Vivek asks people all the time on a regular basis on the campaign trail, okay, what does it mean to be an American? And a lot of times he's met with a blank stare. So he wants to change it. He wants to lead a national revival, make people feel great about America again. So that's a cultural revival that he wants to lead. But he also wants to get our economy moving again under the failed policies of President Biden, who he calls a hollowed out husk. And it comes to destroying the deep state. He's a political outsider. There's zero ties to the deep state and Vivek Ramaswamy. So he's the perfect person to go in and destroy it. We look at affirmative action, and it's basically Lyndon Johnson's executive order 11246 with an executive order that established affirmative action. And it hurts American companies and businesses, where 20% of federal contracts have to go towards a lot of companies when it comes to affirmative action. On day one, Vivek Ramaswamy is going to end that executive order and end affirmative action when it comes to the federal government. He's the outsider that we need. He's going to lead a national revival, and I think he's going to be our next president of the United States. Okay,
by the way, excellent summary. Thank you for that. And one more question I forgot to ask you. What's his take on Trump? You know, does he honor some of the things that Trump has accomplished? You know, the Supreme Court decision we just got on affirmative action in academia was we have to give Trump credit for his nominees on the bench. What's Vivek's interaction with Trump or comments on Trump right now?
Yeah, it's a fair and a great question, actually, that a lot of people on the Republican Party ask all the time. Vivek Ramaswamy has an America First agenda that's going to build on the seeds of what President Trump planted back in 2015 and 2016, but take it to the next level. Take the border, for example. We need to do more than just build a wall. Vivek Ramaswamy has said that he's going to use the U.S. military to not only secure the border, but bomb cartels. Action.
Wow.
Okay.
So I'm in Texas. So, you know, a lot of people in Texas want to hear something about the military protecting the border. That's for sure.
Yeah. Vivek Ramaswamy has said he's going to use the U.S. military, not just to secure the border, but to bomb cartels, because the free flow of fentanyl in every corner of America is killing children, adults, everyone across our country, coming in from China, but yet also through Mexico. So he's going to use the military to bomb cartels and protect the border. But it's taking that Trump agenda further, that it's not a campaign of just vengeance and grievance. We actually have to get the job done for the American people. And Mike, we mentioned and talked about affirmative action before. Any president since Lyndon Johnson could have, with a fell swoop of a pen, ended affirmative action with an executive order, because that's how it started. It didn't happen under President Trump, but Vivek Ramaswamy will do that. So his mission and his goal, he respects President Trump for running in 2015 and 2016, but his mission is to take that agenda, the America First agenda, farther. Not just vengeance and grievance, but actually getting the job done.
All right. Okay. Well said. Wow. If you're gonna start bombing the Mexican drug cartels, it's gonna take a lot of bombs. You're gonna have to crank up bomb production, I think, because it is a much bigger problem than a lot of people realize. But anyway, this has been an amazing interaction. Thank you so much, Stefan, for your time and your dedication to this. You're an outstanding communications director.